Hi, good morning, everyone. Jill Novak here with a juicy chat with my friend Shawna Kerr-Smith. So, Shawna and I have been having conversations lately about how, in so many ways, we sort of do the same thing. I am a wellness coach, and Shawna is a financial coach. But for both of us, so much of our work operates around creating a structure for you so that you can then live into that structure with more ease. And what we're kind of the overall effect, I guess, is to have less stress in your life and to feel like you're purposely designing your life to go in the direction that you want it to go. So, Shawna, to just kick off, can you give us a little bit more of a broader example or a broader description of what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So let's take a car, for example. Let's go back to something that we all use. When you get in your car and you're going to go to a new place, one of the first things we do is punch in that address to our GPS, right? Then we don't have to think about, okay, where's the next right turn? What's construction going to look like? GPS is going to tell us where to turn and the most efficient way to get to somewhere. So we can focus on making sure that the dangers in front of us are what we're paying attention to. Well, I do the same thing with money, right? I look at where we're at today and where we want to go, what people have in place for that, and teach them how to get to where they want to go the most efficient way. We sit back and we put all the steps in place. Okay, you want to retire at this age, you want to pay for this much education, you need this much income protection, you don't have a will. Well, let's put a plan in place to get all that accounted for and taken care of. That way, all you need to do is every month do as the plan says. Something happens, jobs change, kids are born. Well, we just tweak it a little bit. But we get all the monthly contributions to your investments on auto pay. So that way you don't think about every month. You get a paycheck, the money comes in, and we just build a blueprint for your finance, just like you would if you're going to plan a fitness plan or go on a trip.
Yeah. So like when I start working with people, we usually, you do some sort of like check-in with them and plan and sort of what are your needs? What's going on in your life right now? So it's almost like you do a needs assessment, except it's instead of it being around their health, you're doing it around their finances.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, one of the things that always gets to be so important to me is that I always am talking about the fact that if you can take a deep breath, then that's your body saying that things are good. And when it feels like your breath is catching or you can't quite take a deep breath, it's because something's not quite right for you. Something's feeling not quite right. And I keep thinking about this idea that for me, finances for so many different in kind of different pockets of life, they're the kinds of things that keep you up at night. They're the kinds of things that you avoid doing and avoid dealing with. And then they niggle at you. They niggle at you. And it's that niggling feeling that sort of stops you from having a deep breath. And it's also one of those things that as soon as you do deal with it, it's like every other hard conversation or hard thing that you kind of have to deal with. As soon as you deal with it, it's like, oh, that was easier than it felt like it was going to be. And as soon as you're done, you can feel your whole body go. Is that your experience?
Exactly. And it goes one step further than that too, because when we're not breathing that deep breath, because something's holding us there, it's impacting our relationships. So you think about what money does with your partner, and those conversations, they're tricky because you're not on the same page, or you're stressed about it, or you haven't dealt with it. It's his responsibility, it's her responsibility. So if we can ease that, it just eases and lets you take a deep breath as a couple as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like this is the kind of stuff that if we could just prioritize. And I'm always talking about Kaizen. I'm always talking about kind of the small little steps, like just take one small step. And yeah, like maybe we can't. I don't know. I don't know very many people in this world who just like feel like they can like check finances are good. Everything's fine here. I feel like all of us have some little corner where we're like, oh, yeah, I need to, I don't know, get my van fixed, or I wonder how I'm going to pay for that. Like we all have something. So I don't feel like this is a category where there's ever complete ease for anyone, really. And yet there are so many ways that we could orient ourselves towards ease.
Yep. And it's still,
so what do you find like the biggest needs are that you come up against?
There's a couple. The foundation's always where I start when I'm looking, because we as a society have our plans upside down typically, right? We're taught two things. First, our children always come first. So the first place people typically look is to start their child's RESP. I'm going to say for my child's education. That's the first thing they think of when they've got a new baby in the house, where we're like, okay, well, let's step back and we need to make sure that the foundation is solid. If an income earner passes away prematurely or becomes sick and unable to work or is laid off, is there a solid emergency fund, income protection, or life insurance plan there and will to make sure that's taken care of? The other thing we see is, especially right now, everybody wants to go on a trip, right? We need that trip. We need that vacation away. So the average person will spend more time in their life planning a 2-week vacation than they will spending their finances. Right? Scary. So what this last year has taught us is the importance of an emergency fund. Let's set up a fund that can be there while life is good. We can build into it. So when life gets hard and unexpected things happen, we've got the money there. So we're not stressing, we're not going into debt, and we can just keep life a little bit easier. And this is what I talked about last week with some of my clients, was the Kaizening of it. Sure, we want to get to a $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 emergency fund, but what if we just start with $25? What if we just start putting $25 away every other week and work our way up? That way it's not that big, scary number there, and we just get there.
Yeah. And it is that, isn't it? It's like sometimes the big things, we stop doing them because they feel like they're too big. I think you said something else that's true though, too, around like, it's like you have your kids, and I don't know how many people that I interact who, it's like they've inadvertently neglected themselves and their own self-care because they're taking such good care of others.
Yeah.
And like when you say, oh, we have a baby, and then it's like we want to get an RSP. And I think that's the same thing I did, or RESP. That's the same thing I did when I had my babies. Like, it's the first thing that comes to your mind, and we haven't yet taken care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's something to be learned from that, isn't there? Whereas like, if we can get that foundation underneath us, if we can take care of ourselves, if we can, and it kind of feels selfish, then actually we have more to give.
Yes.
It creates this space in us, this expansion in us where we have more to give. And I don't know, like, I think that kind of feeling would be the same in finances, where if you feel like your foundation is there, or if you feel like you have, a reserve, like we always in Ayurveda, we always talk about that word ojas, like you build a container so that it has vitality and life and energy, and your body is that really strong and supportive container. And you're kind of doing that around finances, aren't you? It's like, if you feel like your container of finances has the basic pillars in place, then you rest easier. It's like you come to the table with more resilience somehow.
Totally. Yep. And it's those little things, right? Like, if we even think about just the simple budget, and budget has such a bad connotation to it because it's restrictive. It's like a diet, it's restrictive. So we call it a spending plan, giving yourself permission to spend the money that you make, because you've paid yourself first, you've paid for your insurances, you've paid for your investments, you've put your money into your emergency fund. So now that money that you've allocated to groceries, to eating out, to a date with your partner, to time with your friends, to an evening or activity for your kids, well, now it's okay to spend that money. I've given myself permission. And so I can do it gracefully, willingly, excitedly, and with that vitality, versus being like, oh, I'm going to go spend this money and I'm ashamed because I haven't done this other thing.
And that's the goal, I think. Like it helps us stay healthier when our actions feel like they are done in a way that creates expansion with us. Instead of an action being like, I don't know, writing the check. It's not even writing the check anymore, is it? It's like email transferring or something like that. It's like doing something with a little bit of like, oh, this feels like contraction to me. This feels like fear. So our goal is to sort of reduce as much fear in our decision-making and in our actions as we can.
So something that I heard recently, I was listening to a podcast, and she talked about bills, right? We get our bills in the mail. And if money is tighter, if we don't have that structure there, you open those bills and every bill is a little bit more pressure on you, a little bit more stress. So if we take it and we think about our mindset to it, right? It's a story we tell ourselves. Well, if she's opening these bills and she's thankful for having power in her house, having running water, having the heat, having the ability to own that new vehicle, right? And taking those bills and being grateful for them coming in because she's able to do those things, then it changes the feeling there even.
Yeah. It is around that, isn't it? It's this idea of like, how do you do things with the way that you are orienting your own nervous system towards ease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can make that happen. Now I wanted to ask you, just in terms of being like an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
just in terms of sort of building your business and things like that. So you have, I don't know, been into implementing some structure around wellness in your own life and almost like doing your structural financial plan over on your wellness side as well.
Yeah.
And in that, seeing some OJIS building, some resilience, some reference, or some of that coming up in your world. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So I've got my business, of course, which I've been doing since 2011. I've got 3 children between 2, 4, and 12 years of age. So it's balance, right? And working with you, I'm very grateful to have had last year with you, where it taught me the habits there and I could implement them and make sure that I've got my morning routines. I am staying up late, far too late right now, but I'm aware of that. So when I get tired, I can be like, okay, well, this is the issue. I'm not going to bed early. I'm working late. So it's just regulating and knowing what needs to be done and making sure there's the time for all of the things while choosing the healthy food, right? It's summer, we're eating earlier meals with lots of vegetables and greens from the garden. So it's combining these two things and making them work together in a way that helps me and can bring me to my best. Because when I am tired, I don't work as well. I'm not as efficient. I'm not always as alert as I could be if I've gotten that good night's sleep. And even that, if that means it takes me an extra day to get something out, making sure my clients know, okay, here's the date it's coming. If it's going to be delayed, let them know in advance, but also giving myself that time so I can take care of myself and do a good product, a good service for my clients.
Mm-hmm. I always feel like that's what it is for me, is that it's almost like the higher level I'm operating at comes from those habits and comes from those kind of health anchors that I've put into my day. And when those health anchors are present, then I do feel like I'm operating on a better level for clients.
Yeah. For clients and family, they get the best of me instead of the rest of me, right? Like it's making sure that there's a nice balance of it all. And the only way I can be balanced and give everybody the best is if I'm taking care of myself and giving myself the best, right? I have to make sure that I am taken care of. My cup is full. I'm rested. I'm ate. I've got my habits in to make sure everybody else can be taken care of the way they deserve.
I like how you said that, the best of me instead of the rest of me.
Right?
It's totally true, isn't it? Yeah. And I think that's, especially as women, I think that's almost how we've operated, is that we give ourselves the rest of me and we're always giving the best out to someone else.
Yeah.
And if we can take that paradigm and really flip it around and anchor from this spot, taking care of this first, then it's almost like the trickle effect gets felt anyway. We are giving the best to other people as well.
Absolutely.
But it's almost flipping our practices on its head. And it's like what you're talking about too, like get your financial practices anchored.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's easy, right? Like when I start working with a client, it's pretty intense. It can be, depending on their schedule, we meet every week, every other week, every month until we get a good foundation and good plan in place. And then I always talk to my clients at least every 90 days with regular emails and texts in between, but they know that if anything changes or they've got a question, I'm always there, right? So they can shoot me a message. We'll look into whatever they need, but I'm going to keep checking in to make sure their plan is going as planned, because I mean, the best laid plans never work exactly as how we expect. So we just keep on tweaking, but the most work starts right at the beginning and there it just gets easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think the big pillars are that you would like to see people put in place?
Yeah. So we've got the foundation, which the big pillars there are going to be making sure you've got the income protection in place, right? If a breadwinner or somebody who depends on you, if you are somebody who is dependent on, you need to make sure that your income is protected through life insurance. And it's knowing the right kind, the amount, and for how long too, because like car insurance, we don't need it forever, right? My goal is going to be to get people financially independent, make their money be working hard enough they don't have to work for money anymore. then the wills, estate planning is essential, whether you're 18 or you're 60, it doesn't matter, right? Really, I would love to see students who are graduating from high school get handed a package or a lawyer's card to be doing their will, because it's that important, right? Then if we can put emergency fund in place so we can avoid paying into debt and just ideally get out of debt and never have debt, right? Or have very minimal of it, so we can take that stress off and make sure our money is working for us. And then the other one is just financial independence. How much money do you need to live the life you want in retirement? What does retirement look like for you? It doesn't look the same to us as it did to our ancestors or to our parents or anything like that, right? To me, retirement is really no longer doing something I don't want to do, or no longer having to work for money anymore. I can't imagine not doing what I'm doing right now, or you not doing what you're doing right now. You just might not do it to the same extent, right? And when does that happen? When's that shift? Is it at 40? Is it at 50? Is it at 70? So those are the big areas we talk about. And goals and dreams. The one thing, I don't know if you've seen it, right? You look at your kids right now, they're coming out of high school. They're just out of high school. They've got big dreams. I'll sit with clients in their late 20s, 30s, early 40s, and I ask them what the dream is. Why are they doing this? And they don't know, right? They look at me like I've got 3 heads. They're like, Shawna, I can't pay my bills. What do you want me to dream for?
Yeah. I noticed stage of life thing for that dream piece as well happening. And even partly with me, it's almost like, I think when we're 20, we can see the next 20 years or so, right? You can see that like, okay, well, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do for a living. I'm going to figure out like where I'm going to live in my home. And I'm going to see about creating a family. And it's almost like you can see the steps of that in the next 20 years. And then I find that after that, it's almost these sporadic things like grandchildren and retirement and stuff like that. But for me, I'm like, oh, there's a good 20 years in there where I don't have a good vision. So for me right now, I'm hitting almost 50 and I'm like, I don't have a good vision of what happens between now and quote, quote, retirement. And it'd be really good to have that vision, because what if retirement's not till 70? Well, I got 20 years. Like, what am I going to do with this exciting 20 years?
Yeah. And it's even things like one family I sat with, she really could not believe I'd asked her what her dreams were. She's like, you're here because we don't know how to pay our bills. And I'm like, I know, but how I get you from that spot now to that next step is knowing, what do you want? Why are you doing this? Why are you going to work every day? Right.
Yeah.
And so we left it. I left it at that. And 3 or 4 months later, we sat down. She was in a new house. She's, Shawna, I know what my dream is. And I was like, okay, what is it? And she's like, we want to take our kids to Disney World. And I was like, fabulous. Right. And then we get into when, how long are you gonna be there? And all those questions. So we can put it together so they can see this trip here. Okay, now to fund that trip. So that way you don't put it on debt. And the next time I come, she's like, Shawna, we want to go to this place and we want to take them to do this. Right. And I was like, this is what I've been looking for, is to figure out the whys. So now you're going to say, okay, it's not, I can't afford that. It's changing your words and going, that Starbucks, that restaurant, that hotel, that new truck, is it getting me closer to that dream I want, the plan that I've got? Or is it an impulse purchase for today? Do I spend that money?
It's exactly the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's exactly the same as when you're working on. Right. Because when you're working on your health, it's like people will never make the long-term best decision. Like if they're choosing between, like I'm going to have a green smoothie or I'm going to, have this, Cocoa Puffs or whatever for breakfast. If they're thinking short term, then, and they don't have the vision in their head of like the long-term goal, then they're more likely or not to make the decision that isn't long-term helpful.
Exactly.
But as soon as you know your bigger why.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of sort of current philosophers out there right now saying that people will never do the what unless they understand the why. Unless they understand what their carrot is, what's driving them, what they really want in life.
Exactly. I know even last night I was leaving for an appointment. I said, oh, when I get home, I'm going to have that bowl of ice cream because my kids have exhausted me and life has been difficult today. It's been busy. I'm going to go to my appointment and I'll come home and treat myself. And I got home and it's 9:30 at night. And I'm like, well, do I need that ice cream? Do I feel like that ice cream? And the answer was no, right? Like it's give yourself some time to think of what's going to make the best impact. I know I'll feel better in the morning if I haven't ate it, especially at 10 o'clock at night, right? Same thing. Money's the same.
Yeah. I find all this kind of stuff so fascinating because I think that there are kind of so many areas of life that if we could just be brave enough, because sometimes that's what it is. Like it is brave enough to take the first steps. And we also have to, be brave enough to believe that we're allowed to have a bigger dream, be brave enough to believe that we're worth having a bigger dream, that we're capable of it. Because I think sometimes these sorts of things feel intimidating, or they feel like, I don't know even quite what the word is, but it's almost like you're going to catch me in all of my weak areas. Like if I'm going to start this journey, at some point, I'm going to have to be honest about where I'm at.
Yeah.
And that feels, I think in both health and finances, that feels really vulnerable, sort of to lay yourself bare and show all your bad habits.
Yeah.
And all the places where it's like, nah, it feels really scary to do that, I think.
Yeah. It's also trust, right? Like so much of what we do is trust. Do I trust that person that I'm working with? And we don't get taught the health that you teach in school, and we don't get taught the finance in school. Mm-hmm. And we often don't get taught it from our parents either. So then it's like, well, okay, if these people that are the closest ones to me and guiding me through my life don't know it, aren't teaching me, who do I turn to? Who else can guide me to that goal that I want and help me reveal what, if this isn't working, well, what is working and how do I get there? That's where I mean, you and I are so important in what we do, is just being that guide to not tell them, I'm never going to tell you and I'm not going to judge. It's going to be like, okay, well, what about this, or why are we doing this?
Yeah, I do think it is true. And I love the idea of having a support system around you, because I think that when you have people that you can go to for a quick pick me up or quick mind, centering, so that you feel confident again to be able to keep progressing on your plan, the one that you've put in place. It is so helpful. So I do think building the community around you where you've got those trusted advisors or coaches around you can be really helpful. Now, I think there's a big difference between us in that if you're going to work with me, there's kind of a price tag that comes with it. What is my price tag if I want to work with you?
So that's what's so cool about what I do. So our company was founded because the financial industry has a pretty bad reputation, right? Like there's no lying. It's a pretty corrupt place to be. You see banks making loads of money, charging NSF fees, stuff like that, right? So our company wants to do what's right. And we believe every single person needs a financial blueprint, a GPS for their money. So that part's complementary. What I do in exchange, right, is I really want referrals. I want to help friends and families of the people I work with, so more people can be successful and you can move up in life with your friends. So it's referrals. And then it's also, if we know better and we can do better, and as we're doing a review of your stuff, choosing the products that I have that work, if they work for you, right? I'd never tell a client to use a product that doesn't make sense for them, or if what they've got is working, but there's no price to that sort of stuff. I get commissioned on the products that you use. That's where the brokerage side of what I do comes in. So there's no fee. The most important part is there's no fee for the needs analysis itself. Sit down, we go through it. We'll decide if I'm the right person for you or if you're the right family for me, and kind of go from there. But really anything that you do is paying for that thing because you need it for your family, not paying me for the service that you're getting. Yeah. That payment is in that word of mouth, because we don't do your typical advertising.
Fair enough. Yeah. And I do think that it comes down to sort of like that first step, right? Like yoga says, the very first line of the Yoga Sutras is atha, and it just means begin. Like just start the first step towards where you want to design your life to go. Yeah. And be brave enough for that first step, whether or not it's investing in your health and your just building your vitality and your goals in life, or if it's in making sure that you've got those anchors really solid in your life, so that you don't have those niggly feelings. You don't have the idea that your breath can't be big. You don't have a feeling that, when you're handing over money, you're like, oh God.
Yeah, where's the next dollar coming from? We call it a discovery.
Got a little bit more. It's almost like when we get a little bit more honest with ourselves, that's another pillar of yoga. It's almost like they say that yoga is the word union of mind, body, and soul. And so when your mind, your body, and soul all feel congruent, where they all, like your mind isn't going, pay for my kids' whatever activity, and your body and your heart is just like going, I don't know where that money's coming from. Yeah. Like you don't want to have contraction happening in one part of your body while an action's happening. You want to be able to have health And that health is the congruency between mind, body, and spirit, all feeling like your actions are in integrity with who you want to be, where you're going in life, and you're doing it all in integrity. And so I do think that kind of what you're doing, Shawna, is such a good service to the world because it helps us be in integrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just so important to just get started, right? Discover, like that's what I say, like when I'm talking to new people, like let's just have a 15-minute discovery call and see if this is what you're looking for, if I am who you're looking for, if we can work together to build and live with the integrity, the ease. It's so much about ease. This shouldn't be scary. I want to reduce the fear, the stress, and the scare of it and just make it easy.
Is there a way that someone could just like start getting your newsletter or something like that so they could start getting to know you?
Yeah, if you go, I have a Facebook group and a page called Focused on Finances, and that's a great way. Or shoot me a message. I can stick a link to below when you post this. I can stick a link to our How Money Works book on there. And if you sign up for that, you'll get this incredible book that I love to give to all my clients because it's just taking these concepts and breaking them down so you can apply them. And then by signing up for that, I can get you out to my newsletter too and just help you learn, see if there's anything that catches your attention. I think if we can be better with our money, our kids have so much more hope, right? Like our How Money Works book for kids starts at the age of 3. So what my 3-year-old and my 12-year-old are learning, my 4-year-old, what's she, 2, 4, and 12, right? What those kids are learning, they're miles ahead of what I knew at 18, because when I know better, I can do better, which means they do better.
Yeah. I was a junior achievement representative for our area before I got to full-time in yoga, and junior achievement has money and finance courses that we used to deliver in schools starting in grade 3. So my kids are pretty on it too. We've been since they were younger, we gave them all a really massive allowance, but then they had to pay for all their own stuff out of their allowance, everything from like, Rocky View's school bus fees are coming out. You guys owe bus fees, or you guys have to buy new skates. Okay, well, how's that coming out of your account? And it was it was an adventure to raise the kids that way, because sometimes they'd make decisions and you would just be like, oh my God. And then other times you're like, well, I guess better that they learn now than have to make this mistake when they're 30.
Well, I remember you saying that about one of the kids, right? Choosing sandals. Do I choose the cheap dollar store sandals, which are going to have to be replaced, or do I buy the Birkenstocks that'll last, right? It's the dollar, the value of things too, right? Yeah. Do I buy that thing that's disposable, or do I maybe save up a little bit more money and buy something that's going to last a little bit longer because it's quality? It's all those little things that we don't think about.
And it's watching the kids make those decisions. It's fascinating. Yeah. But we do it every day too. Like sort of it's your values. Like, what do you care about the most, right? There's some places where you're going to save up and want something that's quality. And there's some places where it's like, that doesn't matter to me. I can, but it's fascinating. Any last thoughts, Shawna?
No, I just really appreciate you bringing me on. And I do think like the tie between the two things, right? The health, the financial health, your physical health, your mental health, there's such a big tie there. And so if we can help people understand that when you work on one, you get to work on the other and just improve everywhere, it makes such a difference.
That's what I think, is that for me, it's just one of those areas that when it feels like it's under control, my expansion just feels easier. It's one of those things that I think people probably walk out of their meetings with you, and the second they're done, they can feel their whole body go. And to me, anytime that's the result, it might not be how it feels going in, but anytime that's the result that your body gives you, then you know it's a good thing. It can be like, like you walk out of a yoga class and your whole body is just like, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And to me, when that financial structure feels solid underneath you, that's a big exhale.
Yeah, it's checking those things off the to-do list, because let's be real, the things I do aren't things that you want to get to on your to-do list, right? Planning your stay, right? And it's just, I don't want to think about dying. I don't want to think about who might have to look after my kids if we're not here, those little things. So one of my clients, she told me, she's like, Shawna, I just haven't got to that thing. It's on my to-do list. And I said, can I be really honest with you? And she's like, sure. I said, it's always going to be there. Unless you let me help you, it's always going to be there. It's going to be this weight on your shoulders, because I've seen what happens if these things aren't in place. That's the worst part about it, right? I've seen what happens if somebody passes away and there's no will, or there's no life insurance, or they funded their children's education, but they don't have a retirement. So now they get to work forever and work hard, right? So if we can just help them breathe easier. And I see, like, in the midst of meetings, I'll see people just be like, oh my goodness, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I think sometimes, like, the price we pay for sort of being vulnerable is the hand holding, the guidance, and we feel like we're not doing it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And I
Cool.
say, like, I'll never say no to what you want, or if we've got this plan for that money and this is what the goal is for it, but you tell me you need it for this, I'll ask you, are you sure? Is this really where you want to go with it? But I'll never say, no, it's not mine. It's just to be there and be, like, I say to some people, I'm that little, those little people on your shoulders. Well, I'm the good one. I'm the one that sits there. I'll give you those little tidbits as you need them, and just kind of keep you going that path that you told me you want to go.
Right. Yeah. I like that idea, because I think it's the same in my programs. I always feel like I'm the piece of paper that, like, there is on your desk. And after a few days, it's like 10 pieces of paper down in the pile. And then eventually you go through the pile and you throw pieces out, but this piece of paper comes to the top of the pile and then it goes down again. And I'm the one who makes sure that you, as that piece of paper, the priorities that are yours, that are your health, keep coming back up to the top of the pile. I'm the one who doesn't let that piece of paper get thrown away. It doesn't let that piece of paper get too buried in the pile. So it's nice to have that person in your corner.
Definitely. Yes.
Cool. Thank you, Shawna Kerr-Smith. Great conversation.
Thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too.
Okay. See you later.